Tyler Reddick wins at Michigan and takes the regular season points lead from Kyle Larson. In both of Reddick's wins this season, Corey LaJoie has flipped over his car. Weird coincidence. Plus, we might need to talk about moving start times because of rain. Welcome to the Breaking Balls channel. It's Bob here. This is post-Michigan race on a Monday NASCAR recap. The rain has forced us into a two-day event for the Firekeepers Casino 400 for the Cup Series at Michigan, and Tyler Reddick comes away victorious. If you're new here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a ton. We're always talking NASCAR. And yes, we had a Monday matinee. First of all, raise your hand if you thought Martin Truex was going to win on Monday once he took the lead in Stage 2. I sure did. But no, a different Toyota finds his way into victory lane. It's Tyler Reddick winning for his second time of the season after winning at Talladega earlier in the year. Reddick was in great form after this Olympic break. 4 top 3 finishes in his last 4 races. Almost a top 2 before Denny Hamlin was put back into P2 last week. But yes, Tyler Reddick has been the bridesmaid for the last few months and proves to Sheldon Creed it is possible to finish second multiple races in a row and still win a race. But Tyler Reddick finally winning at Michigan this year. He gets the first win for Toyota in 9 years at the Firekeeper Casino 400. 16 laps led. He took 2 overtime restarts where he had to hold off William Byron, who I guess we're finally defrosting right before the playoffs. William Byron has been non-existent for the last 2 months in the NASCAR Cup Series for Hendrick Motorsports, but finally a good run today. We'll talk about Chevy's performance later, but they are definitely had an uptick today after a lackluster start to the season for the whole Chevy camp, not just Hendrick, but Chevy as a whole. But again, Tyler Reddick, his second win of the year, had to pass Kyle Busch late on the last green flag cycle there. Kyle Busch went for 2 tires there and had a great gamble there with him and Randall Burnett. Really put them in a great position there to potentially have that lead and continue that race streak that he has won for 19 straight seasons, I believe. Every year he's been in the Cup Series. But Kyle Busch just couldn't hold off the Toyota 45 today, that McDonald's number 45 of Tyler Reddick. Nearly had it spoiled, though, again, held off William Byron in the 2 overtime restarts, thanks to Martin Truex Jr., who NASCAR was just insistent on throwing a caution there late with 2 to go. Truex hit the wall and didn't really even cause too much debris or really even scuttle on the track, but NASCAR immediately, yellow, overtime restart. As a fan, you do want to see the race end under green. I'm all for it, but the last month or so of NASCAR racing that they have been on track, they are really pushing these overtime restarts. The Nashville race we said a couple of months ago, it was nice every now and then to have a 5 overtime crazy restart, but if that becomes the norm, we might have to start talking about going back to finishing under yellow and just running the full distance and calling it there. If that's the case, Kyle Busch won the Daytona 500 last year. But anyway, Tyler Reddick is now the new points leader in the NASCAR Cup Series in the regular season standings there. A huge win for him. Again, just getting the monkey off of his back after really good form the last 2 months in the Cup Series, but not being able to get the win. Michael Jordan was at the track yesterday, did leave last night because of the rain delay at Michigan. I'm sure Michael Jordan is probably kicking himself saying, man, the one time I leave. I'm sure he had other things to do, but Michael Jordan at least was at the track technically for Tyler Reddick's win, just the first, I guess, 100 miles of the race. Again, we did talk about Tyler Reddick is the new regular season points leader. He takes over after Kyle Larson got caught up in a self-spin in Stage 2. Larson had a very fast car and led laps today in the first part of the race, but got caught up, just lost the car coming out of turn 4. The air off the back of the car just sucked up the back end, and he crashed, took out Bubba Wallace, who had a very fast car today as well, Tyler Reddick's teammate. Bubba Wallace had a very, very good start to today. Him and Kyle Larson were contenders in this race all day until Larson took them both out there. Wallace ended up staying in the race, but Larson completely crashed out from that wreck. The damage was too much. Bad timing for Kyle Larson there. After last week's comments, I'm better than Max Verstappen. I'm the best driver in the world. I'm not going to disagree, but just the timing there. Don't give anyone any ammo. Us NASCAR fans, we're going to defend you against the European F1 fans, but listen, a tough time for Kyle Larson to have that moment there, just because he is now not the points leader in the regular season anymore. 32 points, I believe, is now the gap between him and Tyler Reddick after this week. And that's after he missed the Coke 600. I know it was worth it to do the Indy 500 double there, and I'm sure the playoffs, when it comes around, he'll win his way into each round, and it won't matter. But who's to say that if Kyle Larson runs that Coke 600, he might be able to win the regular season? I'm just saying those playoff points do matter at some point when it comes down into the nitty-gritty, especially with the parity that is the NASCAR Cup Series this season. It feels like you can make an argument for 5 or 6 guys potentially to be a championship contender. Chase Elliott had a very fast car today as well. He led laps up until that last green flag cycle when his teammate William Byron got around him, as well as Tyler Reddick and Kyle Busch. And then he had that whole, I guess, late stage restart with Brian Blaney that they took themselves out and finished in the teens there. So, Chase Elliott had a potential chance to walk away as the regular season points leader today as well. Those points are going to matter at some point. But again, Kyle Larson with that big incident in stage 2 takes out himself and Bubba Wallace. It was tough to see 2 good cars that were contenders today go out. And then there was Corey LaJoie in his flip today. Corey LaJoie actually flipped over 2 races in a row at Michigan, the Xfinity race on Saturday with Kyle Sieg. If you called him Ryan Sieg, that's shame on you. I did it earlier in my head. But no, it's Kyle Sieg that was the one that flipped at the Xfinity race on Saturday. Now, Corey LaJoie flipping on Monday at the Cup Series race. Jeff Burton was on the broadcast saying that can't happen. And I agree. To have 2 blowovers back-to-back days or back-to-back races at Michigan, I know that the speeds there are very fast. We saw Kyle Larson hit 209 at one point in stage 2, leading the race on the front stretch there. I get that, but to have them blow over and head toward that infield, well, that is the most dangerous and vulnerable a driver is there. And I'm glad Corey LaJoie was okay there, but you heard him say, I had a top 12 car today. And at first I kind of scoffed when he said that, but the Spire duo that finished the race was in the top 10 today. You had Carson Hocevar and Zane Smith both finish in the top 10 today. And then Corey LaJoie, the veteran of that team, ends up flipping over and DNFing. And I think that's part of the reason why he will not be back in that Spire number 7 car next year. One other notable part from today's race, you had the 3 tires blow at once. It was Joe Logano, Todd Gilliland, and AJ Allmendinger. We thought, oh boy, here we go. We're going to have ticking time bombs if this green flag cycle goes. But no, just a random occurrence, I guess. I don't know what happened there, but all 3 guys blew tires, and it was a shame, especially for AJ Allmendinger, because he was really fast. Started at, I think, 35th to start the race on Sunday, and then when we restarted the race on Monday, he was up to, I believe, 13th and was climbing his way up the field. This kind of leads me to my next point, because AJ Allmendinger finished 30th there, doesn't have anything to show for it, except for a new Cup Series ride next year. We have a video on that on the channel, by the way. So, shameless plug. The Chevys were bad fast today. And I had a text to a friend earlier this week where the Chevys have really taken a step back this year. Yes, the Hendrick Motorsports Chevys are still very, very good. You have Kyle Larson contending for wins. William Byron hasn't been great the last 2 months, but you had Alex Bowman win at Chicago. You had Chase Elliott really resurgent, is running top 10 almost every single week. The Chevys were wicked fast, though, because everywhere else in the Chevy camp has just taken a step back. Xfinity side, yes, Junior Motorsports colleague, but look at the Cup Series side. RCR went off a nosedive last year and this year outside of the last 2 weeks. A Trackhouse, where are they? Trackhouse has been non-existent outside Daniel Suarez's win. Ross Chastain has not been in the form, had a lot more speed today, both those cars. Suarez finished in the top 10 and Chastain had the late spin there. But again, RCR, I talked about them a second ago. They fell off a cliff. Kyle Busch was contending for a win today, finished 4th, and you had Austin Dillon even there for a moment there in the top 10 in stage 3, ended up 17th. Ricky Stenhouse was 13th there. Again, the Spire cars, Hocevar 10th, Zane Smith 7th. The Chevys were fast today. And I guess I just didn't expect a full overall performance from Chevy when they haven't really shown it this year. Again, they're the only car that didn't update their body moving into the 2024 season. They will have an updated body style for next year in 2025. But Ford brought the new Mustang Dark Horse, and Chevy with that revamped body style with the Camry, or Toyota with the revamped body style with the Camry. Chevy kind of was left in the dust, it almost felt like, for a little bit there. The last 2 weeks, RCR has just been absolutely lights out as far as performance compared to what we've seen in 2024. Austin Dillon winning last week in controversial fashion, but was probably the fastest car on track. And Kyle Busch this week, again, showing that he was a contender late in the race before passed by Tyler Reddick in that last green flag cycle. The Chevys were fast today. And I think that's something to note here moving forward, if that's a trend or if that's just an exception, because this is a lone 2-mile track now that Fontana is out. And I know my co-host Adam is upset not being here as the champion of the 2-mile ovals here. But Michigan produced great racing today, but it's just unique to the NASCAR calendar. You're not going to see a lot of that in the playoffs there. But again, very nice to see Chevy overall, not just the Hendrick camp, but the Chevys overall, that RCR Alliance team, whether it's Trackhouse and RCR or Spire. They were very, very consistent today. Even Ford, we talk about Toyota being the class of the field. They did. Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, very fast cars today. Martin Truex Jr. was fast. He led laps. But they didn't finish. You had Reddick win, but Bubba Wallace had that incident. Martin Truex Jr. brings out the late incident. Ty Gibbs finished third just because he had a great strategy call there. But outside of that, Denny Hamlin ninth, really just after that early spin in stage one of yesterday's part of the race. Really, Toyota just really, I guess, wasn't the dominant team I thought they would. It was a lot more consistent than I guess I anticipated moving into the weekend. Someone like Eric Jones finishing 16th. Legacy Motor Club, in theory, as a Toyota team, they're circling tracks where the whole Toyota camp is dominant, like a Richmond, a Michigan. It just didn't seem like it was good this weekend. And I know Toyota hasn't won there in 9 years, but you looked at last year, Bubba Wallace was a contender. Same thing. They brought the same speed this year at Michigan. Ford camp, Brad Keselowski, I thought for a moment he was finally going to get that Michigan win he has so desperately wanted in his career. 5th place finish. Him and Chris Buescher literally run joint at the hip when they are racing well together. 5th and 6th place for the RFK duo. Potentially a third RFK charter might be in the works there, as Ryan Preece is rumored to potentially be that third RFK charter sponsored by Kroger. And Ryan Preece had a good run today, 11th place. Stewart-Haas as a whole, not horrible. Noah Gragson, 12th there. Chase Briscoe was just not really there, though, today. And, I guess Josh Berry, when they restarted the race yesterday, Josh Berry just dropped like a rock. I don't know what happened there. He battled back for 22nd, but just, otherwise there, Stewart-Haas, it was half the team was decent. The rest were not. But again, as far as the Ford camp, Harrison Burton, 14th there. We give him a weekly shout out where he finishes. Harrison Burton, though, not horrible this week. And then as far as the Penske camp, you had Logano have that issue with the tire we mentioned earlier. Cindric got caught up in a whole bunch of stuff where he just was slow all day. And then Ryan Blaney, of course, with that incident we mentioned with Chase Elliott earlier, he dropped all the way to 18th after a top 10 run for most of the day. You can look at the overall results all you want, and you can pick out different guys here. I think, though, the biggest thing for me is that this is the moment. Daniel Suarez mentioned it on the broadcast where, okay, that Olympic break happens. You have 2 weeks off. Now after Michigan, there's 2 weeks left in the regular season. Daytona next week, which is basically a lottery for the whole field, and especially those people that haven't booked their playoff ticket. And then Darlington in the Southern 500 to finish the regular season. This is almost the time where you lock in and say, okay, these are playoff races. Because once it gets going here and you start those last 10 races, the margin for error is so slim because the parity in the NASCAR playoff field is so deep now. It seems like every year, somebody we never expect falls out of that round of 16. You had Joey Logano last year at Bristol wreck out. We thought he was safe. Nope, he's out. Outside of Daytona, you're probably going to have at least 2 to 3 people point their way in. So that's good. But you've got to be a little nervous depending on who's going to be the one that's sitting out there, because, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Chris Buescher, all it takes is one DNF for one of those guys, and they're playing musical chairs. And that's not even counting if a Daytona winner happens next week with the lottery. So again, no one in that last 3 or 4 is safe yet. But I think today was a breath of, or a sigh of relief for those drivers that were on the cutoff line. Okay, Buescher, Wallace, they didn't win. Wallace and Buescher had incidents late. Chastain had an incident late. Ty Gibbs was able to make up a lot of ground today after really a not good summer. Ty Gibbs had a strong start to the year and has just kind of floundered while the rest of his Toyota teammates have elevated their game. Ty Gibbs finally getting a top 5 win. A top 5 feels like a win at this point. Again, Tyler Reddick, your winner on this rain-delayed Monday race. I guess we might as well get with the elephant in the room that I did tease at the beginning. I know TV is king here, but we might need to start talking about moving some start times when it comes to common sense. Michigan International Speedway, great track. No lights, out in the middle of nowhere. Okay, We understand that. Let's be proactive. Let's have an earlier start time. That way we're not pressed against it when there is inevitably rain in northern Michigan in the middle of the summer. Pop-up showers happen. We see it. I mean, NASCAR could have an event on the moon. They could hold the Clash of the Coliseum on the moon, and there would be rain there, inevitably. So I think at some point you got to use some common sense, and I know you can't just completely flip the schedule upside down, but if you have a track like Michigan where there's no lights, don't give yourself a tight window. Maybe a 1 o'clock start time isn't the worst idea for a track like Michigan. I'm not saying you have to do that for every race, but if you have lights at a track, you give yourself a little bit more grace. But when you have this fall, the Truck Series is running the Talladega Truck Race at I think 5:30 or 6:30 p.m. and darkness is at 8:30. You're giving yourself no time in case there's cautions, a red flag, a rain delay. Anything can happen. As fans, we want to see 100% racing, and I'm glad yesterday NASCAR finally called it because there was no point sitting around. You break this up for everyone when you could have been racing earlier yesterday. And I know as soon as the green flag start time hit, the rain happens, and you can't predict that. But as fans, it's got to be frustrating. I'm not even the ones at the track. The ones at the track that spend their money and their time and that can't be there on Monday to see it. It's very frustrating. I know that's the risk you take when you buy an event ticket to NASCAR in person. It's one of the rare sports where you're at the mercy of Mother Nature. You go to an NFL game, if it rains, you put a poncho on. You go to an MLB game, it gets rained out. Okay, well, it's thrown out and we get it rescheduled later in the season. But for NASCAR, no, we have to run it early in the morning the next day because especially for this week, it's a short week with Daytona on Saturday night. Those teams already have to get back to Charlotte to get ready for the restrictor plate race this weekend. Quick back-to-back weekends for them, especially with the playoffs starting. It's a no-win situation, but it's a little bit more preventable than what happened yesterday because you wasted all day yesterday and a lot of the nighttime and a lot of fans' time and money. And yes, they got to see 50 laps. It's better than nothing, but it's just a shame that TV is the one that runs everything, and you have to do such a tight window here where there's no margin for error, whether it's rain, a red flag. And, you've seen NASCAR put these hard start times for, 8:20, 8:30 for sundown now. And we've only seen it a couple of times it's been used, but it's a shame that, you have tracks like New Hampshire running at 3 p.m. when you're on the East Coast and they have no lights. You can run that at noon. But again, I'm not in the TV executive room. I'm not the one signing off on those billion-dollar checks with the commercials and all of that. That is way over my head. Adam and I just run a small YouTube channel here at Breaking Balls. Again, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel, like this video. We finally hit 1,000 subs. Thank you. Thank you. If you've been a small part of this, whether it's your first time watching or you've been watching from the start somehow, we have no idea how to thank you, but we will keep putting out content here at Breaking Balls. Adam and I will be putting out more as the news comes out this week. I would imagine you'll start to see some of the dominoes effect from silly season start to take place as far as charters go. Now that we have a little bit more, AJ Allmendinger, if you missed our video the other day, signed to Colleague full-time in the Cup Series next year. He will be in that 16 car. NASCAR will be at Bowman Gray for the Clash in 2025. We've got that. And then on the Xfinity side, kind of a shocker depending on how hard you're following the rumor mill, Sheldon Creed and Sam Mayer will be driving for the Haas Factory team in the Xfinity Series full-time in 2025. We've got some thoughts on that on the channel. Again, if you're new here, subscribe. We will keep you in the loop for all things NASCAR. Welcome into the Breaking Balls channel. The Michigan edition of NASCAR. Race number 24 down. 2 more in the regular season before the playoffs start. Tyler Reddick, your winner at Michigan. We will see you next week. Daytona on Saturday night. Oh, boy, I cannot wait. We'll see you then.